Women have become an essential vote bank for almost every political party. And we can witness that in election schemes, yojana, and subsidies. The finance minister in the budget speech today highlighted that 43% female enrollment in STEM courses, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, is one of the highest in the world. In fact, in her speech, she mentioned that women participation in higher education has risen to 28% in the last 10 years. Cervical cancer vaccinations, maternal and child care under one program. These were some of the schemes which were highlighted. 70% houses under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana in rural areas was also one of the highlights. She mentioned that making triple talaq illegal and reservation of one-third seats in the parliament has enhanced the dignity of women in India, including 30 crore rupees given under Mudra Yojana to women entrepreneurs. Well, in the past few years, women voters have been lowered by almost every political party. But will the announcements, not only in the budget, but because it's the budget day today, will all this translate into better pay parity, encouragement of rural women to emerge in the workforce on the ground? Hello, namaskar. My name is Abhinav Trivedi, and I am joined by Ms. Dakshita Das, who's a retired civil servant and public policy analyst, Mitali Nikore, who's a renowned feminist economist, and Richa Gupta from Deloitte, India. I welcome all of you, ladies. I'll start with you, Dakshita Das. How do you rate the budget? And to my question, will it translate into conversions on ground when it comes to actual women empowerment and upliftment rather than only headline management?
Okay, so Abhinav, thanks for having me here. I think it was a very good budget speech, neat, short, and had a lot of relevance because it, in a sense, summed up what the government has been trying to do for the last decade or so. And in
Okay.
that, the highlighting of the four pillars where the development is to be focused on included women, which makes me happy. The devil, as they say, always lies in the detail. Post the uploading of the budget documents on by the finance ministry, I've taken a look at what the headline news backup numbers are, and they are
Hmm.
deeply satisfying. So I think that the outlays have, in absolute terms, have increased, and there are certain new schemes which the government has, which the FM spoke of in her speech, which are backed by new schemes, new numbers, and all in all, I do feel that going ahead, there will be a deeper focus on women health, which is essential. There will be a deeper focus on women higher education, which is critical. And of course, we have other schemes like the Lakpati Didi, where the targets have been increased. So,
Okay.
yes, I do feel that in terms of the current focus of the government, which is to increase the female participation in the labor force, there is a plan to move in that direction.
Okay. Mitali, let me come to you now. We have been having conversations about how women will be an important vote bank and also an important part of the budget, which was the case. But over the last few years, there have been new challenges emerging when it comes to women's participation in the workforce. Do you feel the budget today and announcements a few days ago, be it through election schemes, has actually given women what they needed from the finance ministry so far? Of course, a lot of jobs still needs to be done, but so far, participation okay? Mitali, can you hear me? I think we lost Mitali. Okay. Richa, let me come to you now. So, would you like to take that question?
Okay, so I agree with what Dakshita said. I think the budget did focus on women. I think we can expect a lot, this focus to continue because women do form a very important, part of our population, and if we don't invest in women, we are not going to be able to reap our demographic dividend. So
Okay.
there's an imperative economic need also apart from the welfare perspective. There's an economic need to be able to invest in our women.
Hmm.
Of course, there are larger schemes focusing on health, which will also help women. So schemes like wanting to have a hospital in every district, So that will help women more than men in many ways, because traveling large distances, having healthcare near home, all of that
Hmm.
always benefits women marginally more than the men. So the
Hmm.
focus on women will help. Whether the budget has given women what they want, it's about what they need, right, rather than what they want. And in terms of what they need, there are definitely right steps in the right direction, but now the pace of implementation, and we need more steps. So right
Okay.
steps in right direction, but we need more steps, and we need the pace of implementation to be much more.
Okay. Okay. I think Mitali is back. Mitali, do you want me to
Yeah,
repeat the
yeah.
question, or you heard it before we lost you?
No, no, I caught it, Abhinav. Sorry, I was just, getting disconnected. So I think the first thing I wanted to point out to everyone is we've run the data and we found that in the gender budget, there's a statement 13 that is published every year alongside the budget, which actually lays out in an accounting sense, not in a real economic sense, how much of the different schemes are likely to go to women beneficiaries. Obviously, it doesn't mean that
Okay.
this actually goes, but it's like a prediction. And in this gender budget, which was sitting at about 5% of the total expenditure in 2023-24, and over the last 15 years, from 2005-6 to 23-24, it's remained between 5 to 6, maximum 6% during COVID. This
Hmm.
time, that has gone to 6.5% of the total expenditure. And if we
Okay.
look at the budget as a percentage of GDP, it's today 1%, which is the highest again that it's been outside of the COVID year since 2005. So, in terms of the resources as well, Abhinav, like we say, right, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So, when we see the quantum of the resources being increased already, and see, it's also about absorption capacity. We can all say that, let's increase the budget to gender budget to 10% of the total expenditure, which is my hope in the future we'll reach
Hmm.
there. But today, the absorption capacity of different ministries to actually be able to spend this amount is also important. And year on
Okay.
year, we have to keep on increasing their capacity to implement the schemes. And as we work with the ministry, as we all are working with different ministries, we can say that this capacity year on year is improving. So we'll start to see the
Okay.
results also year on year. But this increase in allocation is a huge step in the right direction.
Okay. 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 Now, we went on the streets and spoke to a few women when we were doing our research and vox pops on the ground. And the most common problem with most of the women, working and non working, was lower incomes and rising expenditures. Money in hand was the prime problem which most of the women raised concerns about. And also, the cost of raising a child is going up year after year. Inflation, so to speak, the bottom line is the devil. uh, do any of you feel that inflation is rightfully addressed in the budget, or was it more of a election year budget? Dakshita ji, I'll start with you.
Look, this is an interim budget, first of all.
Yeah. Hmm.
Secondly, inflation is largely left by finance ministry to the central bank for management, because the entire monetary policy is built around the inflation and other factors. So
Hmm.
yes, cost of living has risen, but if you go back to the speech of the finance minister, she said interesting things, and maybe not directly about women, but in a sense she said that we've taken care of homes, we've taken care of food, we've taken care of DBT. So there are a lot of things which have happened in the past which have taken care of, in a sense, enabling women to have a slight control over finances. And which income class and which economic class are we talking about over here? Your research, I
Hmm.
presume, is extending to the lower classes, income classes.
The larger
Obviously.
middle class, not the lower class, the upper middle class and the middle class.
Okay. So, yes, there's no doubt that they will be the worst off because of the kind of schools and the income strata they come from. But the government has very wisely weaved a plan in the last 10 years to address these concerns so far as the rural and the lower income groups are concerned. Now, you take, for instance, the fact that they introduced two special small savings scheme only targeted
Huh.
for women.
Uh-huh.
And those are extremely popular. And not only do they promote girl child, but they also take care of expenses on the education of a child. And the other is small savings by your domestic labors, because you can put in as low as 1,000 rupees in
Yes.
your bank account. So therefore, I believe that as far as inflation is concerned, yes, it is a baseline number on which your expenditure is built, your fiscal deficit comes from that, but that's as the central bank indicates. Yes, it is a cause for concern, but we are aware that the RBI is yet to address that devil in the future monetary policies.
Okay, so you're leaving that plan of action to RBI. Mitali, the finance minister announced that there have been 30 crore rupees which have been disbursed through Mudra Yojana. You
Yeah.
interact with a lot of female entrepreneurs. Do you actually find these results on the ground?
Abhinav, I would say that, this time I think the results are there. We are
Okay.
speaking to a lot of women's organizations. We are speaking to a lot of women who are Mudra loan beneficiaries. So what happens is, 70% of Mudra loans, 30 crore is around 70% of the number of Mudra loans, have been given to women. But what the difference comes in the amount of the loan. As you know, Mudra has three categories, right? So women typically opt for the smallest size of the loan, and the average borrowing size per woman is about 30,000 rupees, versus men, the average size is around 90,000 rupees. So we've actually calculated this using the data, and we've spoken to women also to confirm this. Now,
Okay.
this difference arises because obviously women are doing businesses which are slightly smaller scale and more traditional. So what we
Hmm.
actually need to see going forward, we don't have to see it today, right? We don't have to see it in a budget, but what we have to see in a policy direction is a understanding, which we are seeing, that you need to move away from traditional industries, women being stuck in traditional industries, towards
Hmm.
high growing, high growth path industries. So, and this is
Okay.
what Smriti ji said also. 2 days ago, we had this really nice event where she said, I want to see more and more women entrepreneurs in electric mobility. I want to see more and more women, working in progressive sectors like logistics, where lots of jobs are being created. And an
Uh-huh.
industry pledge was taken, led by the minister, where all the industries committed to increasing women's participation in the workforce. So,
Correct.
these kind of actions, which don't have a budgetary implication for the government, but require the private sector to step in and also make commitments from their side, are equally important as, the government allocations. Of course,
Sure.
today I
Sure.
would say the care economy is one area where I would have liked to see a little more allocation in terms of finances. But it was
Hmm.
really heartening to see that Anganwadi workers and Asha workers are being covered by, the Ayushman Bharat scheme, which is a huge,
Sure.
huge benefit for them.
Sure. Now, because we spoke about private sector participation, let me go to Richa. Richa, the finance minister did mention more participation of women in STEM education and more women opting for higher education. Now, women not being part of boardrooms is has been a major point of discussions. One of the biggest reasons which a lot of industry experts do feel is also lack of education. So there's a supply side problem. Demand side is of course a different issue, but there's a supply side problem as well. Now, do you think more women are entering higher education space and eventually landing more jobs in the private sector, and the private sector is also working hand in hand with the government sector to accommodate more and more women?
Okay, before this, Abhinav, I would just like to answer or just my comments on the inflation point.
Sure.
So, as Dakshita also mentioned, of course, it's the RBI that's going to work, or we have to wait for RBI's announcements. But the government in the budget has indicated that it is going to reduce its borrowing from the market, which means that there will be more room for private credit, which means that the yields on government borrowings will come down, giving more room to the RBI if other conditions are conducive to going for a rate cut, which will all
Hmm.
help to bring in less heat on the inflation. So it will help in lowering the inflation marginally. So this can happen give if all the other conditions are conducive, and the food inflation has anyways been very well controlled by the government today. So the basic core inflation is well managed today. It is the other retail inflation which is high, which is causing the interest rates also to remain high. So there is an indication in the budget that they are providing more room to the RBI, given other economic conditions, to have a relook at the rates. So
Hmm.
that's just on the point of the inflation. Now,
Hmm.
coming to the point that you mentioned about women in private sector, yes, definitely. We, we would also want, and we do see women participating more in higher education. Maybe there is a rural urban mix here. There's a tier two, tier one mix here, but there is definitely higher participation, and diversity is definitely an agenda for the private sector. There is a push to increase the diversity factor across corporates. There is a push to have more women professionals from all fields, all women employees join the corporate ranks. That's definitely an agenda. Women in boardroom is also a topic of conversation, is also recognized as something that needs to be driven. And we see what you mentioned about the supply side. We also see universities coming up with specific programs
Hmm.
to inculcate women in boardroom. So it's there are
Okay.
programs meant to educate women for, or help women develop the boardroom ready skills. So that is also happening. So
Okay.
diversity is very much as much a private sector agenda as it is a government sector agenda.
Yeah.
Sure. Now, Dakshita ji, you have been part of many budgets. You have been part of many budget manufacturing process, so to speak, for the lack of better word. Now, one expectation which you thought was not fulfilled, which you expected the government could have taken robust steps, especially in the direction of women upliftment. What could that have been?
Actually, I do feel that yesterday's announcement or the advisory which has gone to the various corporates regarding creche and other facilities, ecosystem facilities, in a sense
Hmm.
preempted what could have come within the budget. Obviously, the
Hmm.
budget cannot speak about these minute details. Abhinav,
Hmm.
also being a purist, I'm constrained by my thinking because I'm aware that a lot of things cannot happen in the union budget. They can only
Hmm. Hmm.
happen in the state budgets. Let's take, for instance, the fact that you give free bus rides to women. And that's
Hmm. Hmm.
something
Hmm.
which works very well in their employability, but the union
Correct.
can't announce that.
Hmm.
So I'm quite comfortable with what has come out.
Hmm.
Yes, there was a lot more expectation from people, but perhaps if we'd had something on the taxation side, we could have expected a financial relief of sort. But in the interim
Hmm.
budget, we didn't expect that. So for me, it's okay.
Okay.
It's
For you,
okay.
it's for you, it's okay. Mitali,
So,
you
Abhinav,
mentioned
thanks.
something about care economy, but apart from that,
Yes. Yeah, so I think the event which Dakshina ma'am is talking about. I was there, 2 days ago when the advisory was released and the national guidelines on crashes were released, and we were of course exceedingly happy about it. It really felt good, like goosebumps, when all the industries were taking that pledge to increase women's workforce participation. But definitely, to back that up, there are government schemes like the Palna Ghar scheme, the Mission Shakti scheme, the Anganwadi
okay.
scheme. I just looked at the allocations. They are quite flat, like they haven't been cut, but they are
Hmm.
quite flat. Those are definitely areas where we could have seen a little bit of an increase. And definitely we could have seen a little bit of increase on women's digital literacy, because that's one
Okay.
area which, at this point in time is not getting the limelight right now. The focus is on crashes, which is correct. We do need to focus on crashes, but at the same time, maybe we could have also increased a little bit on the digital literacy. But I feel like, it's an interim budget, so definitely when the full budget comes in July, this direction
When you
will
say digital
continue.
literacy, you mean literacy in schools or in colleges? Because during COVID, a lot of girl students were deprived of education, and that was a loss for 2 years. You're talking about school
Precisely.
education, if I can.
School education, yes. So within
Okay.
school education, we have a lot of schemes already. Existing schemes are there. Again, in that, increasing the budget, increasing the focus on bridging that gender digital divide would have helped us a lot, even in this interim budget. But that's fine. It is understood that It's an interim budget, and by July, I hope that this policy direction will continue so we can see more and more allocation for care economy, gender digital divide, and for women's entrepreneurship.
Sure. Richa?
Uh, See, there is always Dil Mange More. So there is no end to what we would want in the budget. This was the interim budget, so tax cuts or any other tax related schemes were not announced. On a from a longer platform, not from today, not in the interim budget, but if you look at the long run, I think the things that we need to focus is improving the quality of our universal education, right? So that is a center state program. It's not just the center who can do it. It's a center state program. It has to be
Okay.
done by multiple authorities coming together. So we need to improve the quality and access to universal education. The new education policy, how and when, in what shape it gets implemented, that has to be driven maybe on a mission mode, and within the parameters of universal education, then we need to bring in better quality and better access to other infrastructure, including digital infrastructure. That will not be a policy to be announced in a single budget. There are steps being taken towards it, but it has to be probably taken in the same way as today we have a lot of focus on our physical infrastructure, railways, economic corridors, roadways. So like that, we need to have a focus on the social infrastructure, oriented towards the girl child. So that is happening
Okay.
in step, but it needs to become maybe like a sub budget within itself, and not just a single one announcement in one day during a year. It has to be a fiscal, a policy of federalism which is carried out by both states and the centers together in tandem.
Okay, okay. Now, this would be my last question. We see a lot of subsidies being granted to women farmers, women workers during election times. Now, they do put a load on the exchequer in the form of the budgets go high, the fiscal deficits go high. When we talk about balance, where should the government strike a right balance so that the beneficiaries, or the actual beneficiaries, receive the benefit, but at the same time, it does not put an extra load on the exchequer? Mithali, I'll start with you.
So I think, Abhinav, when we think about this
I'm
question of
talking specifically in context of women.
in
So
women
let's not.
and elections, women and elections.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
think
that's right.
when we are talking about these kind of benefits, they're actually freebies, right? I mean, it's just that
Yes,
these
yes,
freebies are being announced just during elections. Now, this is not
correct.
seen much at the central level. In fact, when we look at today's budget, people are calling it a very bold budget because
Hmm.
there are hardly any
No, my
freebies or
question
any.
is not in context with budget, but in general, the freebies announced in elections by the state governments, in most cases, which is the ruling party at the center as well.
Yeah, no, I mean all governments are announcing freebies, in state governments, regardless of which side, of the political spectrum they may be, and definitely, these kind of benefits don't trickle down to the women in the long term. It's just
Yes.
about that time, that day, आपने एक pressure cooker दे दिया, or you have given some sort of a one object. That's fine for that particular day, but that doesn't improve your standard of living in the long term. So what we
Hmm.
have to do focus on the investment path for improving women's economic empowerment, focus on gender gaps and unpaid care work, bring in, reduce women's time poverty, make men responsible for doing more and more household work, and we have to upskill women and restructure workplaces so that they are comfortable for women to work in. Otherwise, it's not possible for women to go and work.
Sure. Dakshita ji?
Well, I agree with Mitali. First of all, I'm not in favor of freebies at all. And particularly, I come from a generation of women who achieve whatever they did without any freebies of any kind. The issue which comes in now is that are they required? And I do feel that given our demographic size, yes, if we have to uplift women very rapidly, very fast, then to a certain extent, freebies are, even giving a free bus pass is a freebie.
Hmm.
Technically, it should not be there because it's purely bad economics. But
Yes.
at this stage, if we have to increase the women participation in the workforce, freebies are imperative. Only thing
Okay.
is that they
Imperative.
will become permanent, so that's another call which has to be taken later.
Sure. Richa?
Yeah, so every welfare scheme that is organized, especially for women, we need to have a measure of of measuring the outcome. So is the desired outcome being achieved? What is the pilferage? What is the leakage that is happening? uh,
Correct.
is the target segment benefiting? So if we are able to undertake that kind of a study for every freebie scheme that comes, then those freebie schemes can then become schemes of empowering or uplifting women back into the workforce, or also giving them better access, better, more choices to be able to, because even if there are freebies like cash transfers to women, right? Now,
Hmm.
those cash transfers to women over a period of time, what are they achieving? Are they helping women, in the small entrepreneurship journeys? Are they helping women stay longer in the schools? Are they helping women stay, finish their college graduation, etc.? That kind of, no, that kind of outcome studies
With
that
that,
is
you
there.
also imply women's participation in banking. I mean, women's access to banking services, which a lot of
Yes,
women
yes.
don't have in our country.
Yes, so all of those, if targeted transfers, if direct transfers are achieving that, even in a period of 3 to 5 years, yes, then they are beneficial. Then there is an economic
Okay.
benefit of
Yeah, but
having
these are
those
not
freebies.
those are not freebies. Abhinav, the RBI has clearly defined what is a freebie, and they
Hmm.
have written a paper about it. So anything which is short term, which is given for electoral gain, and which is only given in a one time kind of a scheme, is what is called a freebie. And in fact, Richa, what you and Dakshita ma'am are describing are, literally social sector schemes which are measured every year in the outcome budget. So, in the outcome budget, we are seeing the numbers of beneficiaries. Ideally, we should see gender disaggregated data in the outcome budget. That would give us a complete sense of, how many women are benefiting from social sector schemes. But,
Yes.
Abhinav, just to close it, it's basically that, these are not freebies. Freebies is what is the one time, sort of entitlement or enticement you're giving.
Meant for electoral benefits. That's what you are classifying them as, like
Yes.
what
And
RBI
that's what
said.
IPR has classified them as.
Sure. Ladies, thank you so much for your time. I personally love discussions on women empowerment, and I hope I do not see each one of you with the same set of problems we are discussing today in the next discussion. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Avina.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Thank you, Abhinav. Thank you. Bye bye.